What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a banger of a video, a true Hall of Fame hoot and a holler. In today's video, we're talking about my first time doing coke. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Some of you might be thinking that you already know this story, and you probably do know a portion of it. However, this video needs to be remastered for two reasons. One, this story has been private for a very long time now, and two, the original video, I was so geeked on Adderall, I sounded like this.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Goblin, and today I'm coming in with a story time for you guys about my first time doing cocaine.
So as you could imagine, there were a lot of points of detail that I did not cover in that video, because I was absolutely out of my mind off my Adderall script. So I figured it was a fitting time to remake this video, as this video is now going on 6 years old. So this is a very old OG video. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Drop a like if you do. Let's dive right into it. Now, this happened a very long time ago. This happened in my junior year of high school, towards the end of my first semester. So, we're talking winter 2015. That is a very long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. Almost 7 years now. Wow, I've been a tweaker for that long. That's so comforting. But either way, so on this fateful day, I had no intention of doing coke. I'd like to start off by saying that. This day started off like any other. I had just gotten out of school. I was hanging out with some friends of mine. I linked up with a girl who we're going to call, what are we going to call her? Let's call her Michaela. Fuck it. You know what? Let's just say it how it is. And we were also with my boy Kyle, who you guys are probably familiar with. He's been in a few of my streams. He's popped on, quite often and said hi on some of my IG lives. So some of you guys might be familiar with him. Previously, I referred to him as Kevin in my videos. But either way, so I linked up with Kyle and I also linked up with Michaela, and we had planned to go over to Cody's house. Now, I wasn't planning to hang out there for very long. We were just going over there to pick up a little bit of weed and also a little bit of Xanax. You see, back during this phase of my life, I was just getting into doing Xanax, It was cheap, it was very easy to find, everyone and their mother was raiding their grandma's cabinet and taking that shit, so, it was really, at the time, an ideal drug for me to be doing. Now, that's a terrible thing for me to say, don't ever do Xanax, they're horribly addictive and terrible to quit. However, at the time, I wasn't considering any of that information, so Cody had told me he had some Xanax that he was willing to just hook me up, He said, I don't have much left, but, if you want, I have some crushed up if you want to do some lines of it. Now, back when we were young, we thought snorting any pill was very cool. We did not realize that snorting Xanax is a complete waste of the pill because it's not water soluble. But when we were young, we didn't know that. So we were like, yo, dude, let's do some lines, dude. We can't afford Coke, so Xan lines will do. Actually, I think Xanax is like a little water soluble, but it doesn't dissolve all the way. Either way, if you've ever dropped Xanax in a drink, you know what I'm talking about. If it dissolves all the way, you should maybe be like a little concerned. But I haven't done Xans in so fucking long, man. Thank God. But either way, all right, back on topic here. So we hop in Michaela's car. She comes and picks us up in this old little beater. She had this car that she had a name for it. She called this thing Carl. Now, this car has been dead for a long time. If I remember correctly, I think she totaled it by hitting a deer. But either way, this was the whip, dude. You could smoke it out. It was an absolute shit bucket. I don't know how the wheels still turned, but you know what? It was fun, and it got us around. So she picks up me and Kyle, who were already together, because Kyle lived literally down the street from me. We hop in her car and we ride over to Cody's house, and it was a fairly cold winter night. We had our jackets on. I remember it was very snowy, and we ride over to Cody's house. Now, when we get there, we're chilling out for a little bit in the garage, and we smoke a little bit of weed. Like I said earlier, I was there mainly to grab some bud from his brothers. So I grabbed some, and all was fine and dandy. I didn't grab very much. I think me and Kyle had split a 1/4 ounce. So nothing very crazy, but And then we smoked out Michaela just for driving us. So after chilling in the garage and smoking a little bit, Cody invites us to his room, and this is when you know shit's gonna go down. You see, whenever Cody would invite me to his room, it meant that we were doing harder drugs than were allowed in the garage. It meant that we had to hide it behind closed doors, all right? No one else could see. So I'm getting a little excited. I got a little pep in my step walking back to his room. It's me, Kyle, Michaela, we're all in the joint. Now, he goes into his bathroom and he pulls out this piece of notebook paper, and it apparently had some pre-crushed Xanax in it, right? He lays it out on the table, and it's just, I mean, it looks like some crushed Zans, no biggie. Everything looks right. Granted, we're not looking super close up, and also, mind you, I had never done coke. I didn't realize that what he had just done is he had accidentally switched the Xanax that was stored in notebook paper with the coke that his brother had stored in notebook paper. You see, he had a lot of the same habits as his brother, so his brother would take his coke and just store it balled up in notebook paper. So Cody would do the same thing. He would store his drugs, his powdered stuff, sometimes even weed, in some notebook paper, and he would put it in the same goddamn spot. So it was a very, this was bound to happen, if I'm being honest. I mean, this was inevitable, one way or another, this was going to happen with the way that they were storing their shit so close to each other in the same way. But this was the fateful day where it finally did happen. So he lays out the notebook paper and he separates the powder, right? He's separating the chopped up Xanax, quote unquote, what we thought was Xans. And I had never done coke before, so I didn't, really seem to think anything of it. I didn't look at it and notice like, oh, it looks a little off, because coke definitely has a very distinct look. It's not just a white powder, It's got this certain oily, almost glossiness to it. That it chunks up a certain way, at least if it's decent, and you can notice a line of coke and separate that from a line of any other white powder fairly easily with a little bit of experience. But I had none of that experience. So we separate up these lines, and there's, if I remember correctly, I believe there was 2 lines for each of us, and they were fairly big lines. And mind you, the lines, we were expecting them to be big, because we thought that this was crushed up Xanax, and Xanax, even crushing up just one little ladder, makes quite a lot of powder. I mean, a decent little mound of it. So more than enough for 4 lines to not really be that concerning. He divvies it up, and we go to town, right? We roll up a $1 bill. Michaela opted to not do any, so Kyle went first, and then I went after Kyle. We did our lines really quickly, and then dipped out because Michaela had to go home. So we get out of there pretty quick. I do my line, and at the time, I didn't really notice anything. I don't know if it's just because I had never done coke before or what, but at the time, I don't remember noticing any difference or any strange taste or anything, which now looking back at it, I definitely should have, because coke has a very distinct taste that is way different from Xanax. Xanax is bitter. It's disgusting. And when you do a line of it, it just drips down the back of your throat, and it's awful. But this didn't do that. In fact, it did drip a little bit, but it wasn't bitter. It was chemically, almost kind of like Molly, if that makes sense, Coke has that classic chemical taste. And I remember as I got in the car, my nose was runny. And it started dripping a little bit, and I realized, as I had sat in the car and we dipped out, because this, mind you, the span from me doing the line to getting in the car was maybe 60 seconds. I mean, literally, by the time I leaned down to do the line, he had, Cody had already said goodbye to Kyle and Michaela, and they were just waiting on me. So I get in the car, and Kyle gets in the car, and I'm sitting in the back seat. And I say to Kyle as we pull off, I'm like, yo, I'm fucking hype right now. I start feeling really amped up, and I didn't know what was happening to me. I started feeling super lit, but not necessarily intoxicated. I was still very clear-headed. I could still focus and think. It's just I had so much fucking energy, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So I said to Kyle, I was like, yo, how are you, don't you feel kind of weird right now? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, don't you feel super fucking hyped up? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, I don't think that was Xanax. And I was like, what do you think that was? And he's like, this feels like coke. Now, I had never done blow before. I didn't sign up for this. But at this point, I'm having my first coke high, and I'm absolutely lit out of my fucking mind. Granted, this stuff was not very good coke, right? It didn't last very long, and, for my first time, I honestly didn't feel that intense of a high. But how fat these 2 lines were, I feel like I should have felt way more geeked, but I had next to no numbing. I mean, I was still able to feel my face for the most part. Maybe a little numb, but for the most part, I was still able to feel my face. And normally, when you do that good coke and it starts, you get hit with that drip, your face, your cheeks in particular, they really just kind of go numb. But I wasn't getting that. However, I was totally getting the mental effect of just being absolutely zapped out of my fucking mind, amped up. So we are just lit. And I pull out my phone and I call Cody and I'm like, yo, what the fuck did you just give us? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, bro, there's no fucking way that was Xanax. That shit was crazy. And I was talking my fucking lungs out, dude. I was talking faster than ever. And he kind of pauses on the phone for a minute and he goes, oh, fuck. And I'm like, what? And he was like, you're right. That wasn't the Xanax. That was my brother's coke. Now I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I mean, that can't be that bad. But then I remember that his brother is moderately violent, has pulled a gun on me before, and is also a very active cokehead at the time. So he would probably be fairly displeased about this. So once I kind of looked back and remembered that, I was like, well, this might not actually end so well. So I say to him, I'm like, what the fuck do we do? And he's like, I don't know, bro. And I'm like, listen, we'll figure this out later. I'll call you back, okay? I did not want to be stuck on that phone anymore. So I hung up, and I say to Kyle, I'm like, yo, we should just do some shit right now. And he's like, yeah, what do you want to do? And I'm like, bro, we should just go for a run or something, I had so much energy. I am not a very athletic person, okay? You can look at me and probably tell I don't go for too many jogs, all right? But this was a day where I could go for a damn good jog. So I roll down the window of the car, and I'm sticking my head out the window like a dog, right? Michaela is flying at this point. She's starting to get a little stretched. She's like, are you guys good? We're like, yeah, don't worry about it. At one point, we're driving down the road, and I say to her, I'm like, yo, I bet we could fucking race this car right now. And as soon as I said that, Kyle was immediately down. He was just like, yes, stop the car, pull over, let us out on the shoulder. We will race you home. Michaela thought we were joking, but me and Kyle were very dead serious, and I kept pushing it. I was like, yo, pull the fuck over and let us race the car. She's like, you're not going to beat the car. But I was genuinely convinced that I could beat this car in a foot race. I was like, yo, you gotta pull this shit over. Just give me one shot at it. I'll go Usain Bolt. I swear to God. Now, luckily for Michaela, me and Kyle lived no more than 10 minutes away from Cody. So this ride was over pretty quickly. She pulled up in front of my house and just kind of dumped us like a pissed off bus driver, right? So me and Kyle are now standing on the corner and we have nothing to do. We have a little bit of weed, but obviously we don't want to smoke that shit. So we're trying to figure out something to do. And we're just like, yo, what if we just go for a nice walk? So we go for the most intense power walk that I think I've ever been on in my life. I mean, I shit you not. I think I could have walked from Chicago to St. Louis. I was so determined. I was really into it. We were just having a beautiful stroll, appreciating the weather, and we could not stop talking about the dumbest shit. We were just like, yo, dude, isn't it so beautiful out, man? Isn't the weather so great? And eventually we stopped and body boxed a little bit, We just started scrapping, just started punching each other for the hell of it, We had so much energy. I was like a little tweaker kid. I was like a little meth baby that it grew up a little bit, but kept having the meth ingestion, maybe like secondhand meth smoke. So this kid's just amped up, absolute tweaker mode. That's how I felt, just like a grown-up little meth baby. But I was just full of energy and could not stop myself. So we're doing laps around the neighborhood, stopping every now and then to body box, doing more laps around the neighborhood. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, in reality, this was a total time span of an hour at this point. I had started to really come down hard. I mean, very hard. It felt like 1 minute I was amped up on top of the world, and the next minute my head hurt and I wanted a blunt. So that's exactly what we did. We made our way back to Kyle's house, and we rolled up a blunt in his garage of our freshly scooped weed and smoked that. We discussed a little bit. I said to Kyle, I was like, listen, dude, what do we do about this coke situation, Cody's brother's gonna be mad. So we had only one option because obviously I'm a regular customer at Cody's house. I would go there and grab from his brother. I could not get banned from the establishment. I also didn't have the kind of money to pay him back for coke. Coke is very expensive, and 16-year-old me didn't have money for anything besides Xanax and weed. So I call Cody back and I tell him if he's figured out what he's going to do yet, and he just says no. So I say to him, I'm like, listen, I have an idea. Now, I had never brought Michaela over to Cody's house very often. She had only been there maybe 2 or 3 times just to give me and Kyle a ride. So I said to Cody, I was like, what if we just blame it on her? You know, I mean, throw her under the bus. She's a great friend, you know, good girl and all, but you know what? She's got to go. I mean, it's her or us. This is Darwinism. This is survival of the fittest. She's got to go. So we opted to just blame it on her, and that's exactly what happened. Cody told his brother that we had some tweaker bitch named Michaela over, and she stole his coke. In reality, I don't know if this girl's ever even done coke, but you know what? We painted a bad enough picture of her where his brother bought it. He took the bait. To this very day, I still think that his brother is under the impression that she did this. Granted, it's a little too late to go back now, but looking back at it, I don't think he ever figured it out, you know? I mean, how would he? We were pretty slick about it. But the next time I went over there, a couple days later, it was so funny because he was like, yo, man, where's that bitch at, man? Call her over here. I want my shit. And I was just like, I barely even know her. I swear to you, man. I don't know her, man. Cody was in on it too, even though it was totally his fault, because I felt bad. I was like, well, we did the drugs, but it was Cody's accident, but I don't want any of us to get in trouble. So you know what? Michaela's got to go under the bus. And that's just how it played out. But everything worked out a-okay, and that's the story of my first time accidentally doing coke. I totally did not intend to do that, but, you know, it's a fun story, and I felt this one deserved a remaster. The original version of this, I was so geeked up that the video was like 7 minutes long, and I skipped a lot of important details, so I figured it was time for me to actually remake this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Drop a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also, if you don't follow me on Instagram, what are you waiting for? Check the description. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Let me know in the comments if you ever saw the original of this. Peace out, gamers.